Hey everybody out there in YouTube land, this is Roy Carter from Rectitude Media, and I'm going to change things up a bit and talk about the new DC and Marvel films that have came out, and kind of my opinion on them. So, spoiler alert for, I guess, what, be talking about like three to five movies. Captain America Civil War, I'm talking about X-Men Age of Apocalypse, Days of Future Past probably, maybe a few references there, and also talking about the Batman vs. Superman movie, so should be interesting to see what I'm going to say. Anyways, guess I'll start off just saying that my experience with the whole comic book culture and just like the TV shows in the 90s and stuff is, back when I was a kid and stuff, mostly through like garage sales and whatnot, because, well, I never really had a lot of money as a kid, and, my parents weren't really that loaded, and a lot of the times I noticed that if you go to like garage sales or like different flea markets and stuff, they would have like different comic books there that were actually pretty cheap. And this is definitely before they started doing the whole the movie started making a lot of money for Marvel and everything. And they started doing a push in the 90s. I was kind of like a big fan of like some of the storylines that they did there, but it's kind of hard for me to like kind of diverge away from the original source material for a lot of stuff. I'm going to talk about, Captain America, the Civil War movie for beginning. I just found like the comics was just so much more interesting. Just kind of like the whole story with Nick Fury going after like the nanites and stuff, and the whole in Connecticut they had like the Stamford with the Warriors and that whole thing with Nitro where he like destroys a good portion of like the city, and they're actually like Iron Man was originally against the Mutant Registration Act, but then that was kind of the catalyzing moment where he kind of did say, hey, listen, we need to go pro-registration for the time being until we can settle things down and whatnot. But just kind of not seeing that switch, just having him in the movie as just always like, and it's kind of like I can understand where they're coming from with the whole Age of Ultron thing, because they kind of make it where he made Ultron, even though it was like, it was originally, I think, Hank Pym that made Ultron, kind of like an earlier version, way back in like the 60s or 70s or something like that, I'm not too sure, but, so it was kind of like, yeah, I can understand where they're coming from with like, Tony Stark kind of being like, afraid that with all this power that they have, and like, always worrying about like the global security and stuff like that, and what could happen next with superheroes that have like crazy powers or just trained deadly assassins and stuff. So I can understand where he's kind of coming from in that kind of perspective, but it really kind of didn't go into, it was almost like it wasn't even really a civil war. It was more like just like, 6 or 7 fucking superheroes against another 6 or 7 superheroes. It was actually kind of very disappointing, because like seeing the actual Civil War itself was actually a relatively new, it was actually easier for me when I found out about the Civil War and the actual Marvel Universe and the unfortunate death of Captain America. But it was just such a better story from the comics, because there was like, the X-Men were involved. There was Fantastic Four. Reed Richards had a huge important part to play too with the pro-registration. And, just seeing that whole aspect just kind of get completely not put into the storyline was very annoying. It was just kind of a slap in the face to real comic book fans or people that knew about the original source material, and leaving out like the Tinkerer, the nanites. I mean, there's just so much stuff that could have been put into that storyline which could have easily made it better. But for people that just wanted to go see a good movie where there was like action and your favorite superheroes, then yeah, I can understand why they like the movie, and that's totally fine, because Hollywood knows that there's a huge group of people where they're like, I mean, just look at their whole business model of the past 10 years on remakes of movies that were popular, or franchises that were popular in like the 70s and 80s and so forth, and like the 90s. They're just kind of like knowing that there's going to be money there. it's almost kind of like a cop out, so they don't have to actually come up with original material. Like, I would love to see someone do like a movie on Nikola Tesla's life, and like, you know, even embellish it a little bit by like having them kind of like, and no, I'm not talking about the Prestige where they had David Bowie, you know, rest, you know, his good soul and stuff, and rest in peace and all that jazz. But you know, it just would have been nice to see kind of like someone do like a really good stuff on his life kind of thing, and a really cool movie on that. I would love to see it, but you never really do. It's really hard to find you know, somewhat original material in Hollywood nowadays. So that's just how it is, unfortunately. But anyways, getting back to the superhero aspect of things, I was disappointed with Captain America Civil War, just because I was really kind of hoping to see just more of the involvement of the superhero community and just like the split down the middle. Like, I understand that, you know, there's the rights for the Fantastic Four, the rights for the X-Men, you know, different production companies there, but you know, they could have at least put in other superheroes that were involved that, you know, they don't have the, like, they're not fighting over the rights for, so, and just kind of put that whole thing to see the implications of what it would be for the mutants that have to choose a side, pretty much. And there's also, you know, superheroes that don't choose a side until things get pretty bad, and they also don't put in the fact that like the prison that they have in Captain America was just kind of like any kind of normal prison they're gonna get busted out of. I mean, we're talking about like badass superheroes, for example, you know. I really like the comic story where they actually get put in like this weird like negative zone prison where it's like kind of like a weird dimensional rift where they're being stored. So, and it's like a Fort Knox pretty much, where it's really hard to get in there, and like also with the pro registration side, also using like supervillains with like nanites controlling them to try to win the war on the anti-registration. So just kind of seeing that whole lack of storyline in there just was really depressing. But I mean, it was still a good movie for people that have never really, you know, seen it, and just kind of wanted to see, you know, superheroes going after each other. But I didn't think they really call it the Registration Act. It was like some sort of like weird accord or some bullshit thing like that. So it was kind of interesting, you know. It was I don't know. It was just disappointing as a fan to not see that in there. But you know, I was gonna watch it anyways because yeah, it's nostalgia factor and all that jazz. So, but yeah, that was pretty much my real beef with Captain America: Civil War, and I'm gonna move on next to the DC universe with Batman versus Superman, and I've noticed I've actually watched a lot of reviewers on YouTube, and I kind of have to agree with Channel Awesome's Nostalgia Critic. When he was talking about how just kind of Zack Snyder really kind of just tried to mesh everything into one movie. I mean, the fans really did just kind of want to see Batman versus Superman. I mean, the Dawn of Justice was kind of a bonus, you know, like the characters in there with like Wonder Woman and stuff. It's kind of cool she's getting her own movie, and you know, they're gonna have like Aquaman, and I guess they're making a Cyborg movie down the road, and like also having like the Flash and stuff, and you know, just kind of interesting to see how. I don't know, when they used the Batman origin story with, like, his mom's name being Martha, it was just kind of like, you know, if, like, their names were, like, the name of their moms were, like, completely different, then, you know, like, the whole movie would have just been ended in fucking horrific tragedy. So it's just, like, it's almost like the whole Batman and Superman, you know, like, Superman gets saved by a fucking coincidence, really. So there was that part that I just really couldn't, you know, I was just kind of like, I don't know. But, I mean, it started off really cool, you know, kind of did the elements of the Man of Steel, where you're seeing, like, just the whole destruction of everything, and the war between the, you know, the Kryptonians with Zod and Kal-El, and so it was kind of interesting to see that whole thing play out, and also seeing it from, like, Bruce Wayne's kind of perspective, where, you know, like, he's just trying to, like, run in, like, the whole, like, the huge debris cloud coming towards him, and he's like running right into it. It was pretty cool. It was, you know, very indicative of just Bruce Wayne's character, you know, like and Batman. And it really kind of seems that they're kind of making him more darker, you know, which is, you know, a lot of fans are liking, but it's kind of getting to the point where, like, I mean, I think Batman straight up killed some people in that movie. Like, we're not even talking about the branding stuff, which is kind of like its own kind of interesting thing there. But, you know, so it was kind of interesting between the parallel between Superman, who's always about, you know, still catching the bad guys, but leaving it up to like the kind of like the letter of the law, as opposed to the vigilante kind of brand of in your face badass justice from Batman and stuff. So, for a movie, it was kind of cool to see like the action and the kind of like the messianic kind of like symbolism and stuff. So of Superman and kind of like how people are kind of getting used to that whole thing. But it really did kind of I don't know. It just seemed like they were trying to put too much stuff in there, and I really hated the Lex Luthor. Oh my god, it was pretty bad. You see, for anyone that's really like read the comics or like followed kind of like Lex Luthor's character, I mean, DC kind of has this weird thing where they have to kind of make all their characters, like all their superheroes, just like super badass and like more like overpowered, kind of to like the point where you think they're almost like Greek gods. But with the exception of like Bruce Wayne, who's just really like the world's like best detective and is really smart and has all these resources and stuff. And Lex Luthor, who has a lot of resources and is super smart, but has a huge thing against Superman and everything. So, I mean, Lex Luthor, he really, he didn't have they didn't have to make him bald to be Lex Luthor, but just kind of having his character more kind of like not so. Like it was just so apparent what his plan was early in the movie, that that he was up to something. Like Lex Luthor, really kind of like he's so smart, but the half of the battle is trying to figure out what he's doing. Like he keeps you guessing, and there was just that lack in the movie I really noticed, and of Lex Luthor's character, and that's what I always thought was so badass about Lex Luthor. Not the fact that he had all these like machinery and that he put kryptonite in practically everything. It was more of the fact that he was a very smart character. It was very hard for him to figure out what he'd do next, and he kind of just plays on the usual kidnap the superhero's love interest and kind of hold the ransom thing and then try to get them to fight each other thing. So it was just kind of like I don't know, it was kind of a really bad kind of sort of just kind of half-ass effort in my opinion, especially the whole Martha, why are you saying that? Oh well, Martha's my, oh really, oh let's be best buds then. I was just kind of like, oh my god. And Doomsday kind of not looking like Doomsday, and there's just and for people that like the Parademon, like Kevin Smith made a good point in his review, saying that there are people that probably would have just paid the price of the admission of the ticket just to see the Parademon. So that was kind of cool, and I like that. It was pretty cool. But I don't know. It was just really kind of it was an alright film. I mean, it was. I guess a lot of the disappointment and like the kind of like comes from like being kind of like I don't know, just kind of like knowing a lot of the comic book, the original source material, and just kind of seeing how it kind of changed. I mean, they kind of put way too much stuff in there, which just really kind of ruined it for me. But I mean, it was still a good movie. I still would watch it again, just because it's it's kind of ingrained in our culture. After watching all that, the '90s cartoons and stuff, and the comics and whatnot, as a kid, you really want to see these characters come to life on screen and the different interpretations of them. So, for people that have never watched the TV series or have never like really looked into like the comic version of the stories and stuff for both DC and Marvel, I can see why they probably either like it or didn't like it. But it really does seem like it's giving Hollywood kind of just a like their own kind of way to get their own stuff. But and also the problems that they're having. I mean, it would have been nice to see like if they had like the Arrow or the Flash from the TV shows, but you'll never see them in the movies. That's just how it is, unfortunately. And also Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is also suffering from the same criticism of not having a lot of the big name superheroes kind of cross over into their it's pretty much just like a kind of like sideshow really towards like the main attraction, which is really going on in the cinematic universe. And it's just a shame really, because there's a lot of good ideas and directors that and producers that could easily make something that like everybody really loves. And hopefully with Zack Snyder out, they might come up with I mean, I don't even understand why people would pick Zack Snyder to make a Batman versus Superman movie. I mean, yeah, okay, the guy is like decent when it comes to action and stuff, but have you ever watched his movies? Like fucking, I think he did Spy Kids and like fucking Sucker Punch. That movie made absolutely no goddamn sense whatsoever. I mean, yeah, it was pretty cool. You know, they're like, you know, fighting, like shooting zeppelins and fucking weird zombie Nazis and shit. But you know, then it goes right to fucking, you know, like giant ass samurai sword fights and weird stuff like that. You know, but made absolutely no sense. And he's probably one of the worst people you could ever have directing that movie. So, and I think Ben Affleck's kind of down on himself, saying that he wasn't happy with the performance, but he did a good job in my opinion. He was all right. It was kind of more like I'm Batman. You know, it seems like they keep getting him more badass and stuff, but you know, like it's kind of cool to see like one of the newer, because they keep going more badass with Batman. It'd be kind of cool to see kind of like an Adam West, kind of like a goofy thing in the new movie. Like, holy hamburgers, Batman. It's just kind of funny to see that happen in one of the newer movies that would totally ruin it. But you know, just seeing how Batman's kind of, you know, transitioned along the years. I mean, Christopher Nolan really did a good job with the whole character, with the Bane and Heath Ledger, you know, rest his soul, with the Joker, you know. So should be interesting to see how the Killing Joke plays out. And Suicide Squad looks like it's going to be kind of cool with Harley Quinn, and they also have, I guess, Jared Leto playing the Joker, so that should be interesting to see how that happens. Like, I'll definitely see that movie, but, you know, I love the DC universe just as much as I love the Marvel universe. I never really picked one or the other as a kid. I just love the stories for both. And, converter just dropped there. But, yeah, for people that never really knew anything, I guess it really comes down to what you personally believe in, and for me there's a lot that really needs to be kind of changed in Hollywood. You know, it really kind of seems that they kind of have to get this sort of like different rights to superhero groups and stuff like that. They got to get that figured out, because you know, they're just really kind of screwing themselves over on really good stories of the Marvel universe, like the Infinity War. I mean, like pretty much every character in the Marvel universe is affected, and I mean, they better bring in Adam Warlock. They better bring in like you know like other characters like the X-Men and stuff like that. It would be kind of cool, or like even Doctor Doom. You know, like kind of like fighting for the you know, the benefit of mankind and stuff like that. You know, like I just really can't see them doing that with the Marvel universe now, the way they've got it set up. So it's just kind of disappointing if they make like the Infinity War and like don't include most of the really kick-ass characters that made that series, just like that whole storyline just fucking phenomenal. And it's an older one too, which is kind of interesting with the Infinity gems and stuff like that, and seeing how hopefully they put in like how like Thanos outsmarts and outwits a lot of the elemental, like the people that are like the characters that have the Infinity Gems. And already with the Guardians of the Galaxy, you're going to see that it's going to probably be a different storyline whatsoever, just because of how they have it, and also with the Vision too. So yeah, we'll have to see how that goes, which is just going to either suck incredibly, or it's going to be all right, but it's going to be in like their terms kind of way. Anyways, I'm going to talk about moving on to X-Men Age of Apocalypse. And Age of Apocalypse, I don't know, it's really hard for me to like the Fox, I guess, version. I think that's the ones that own it, if I'm not too sure. Because of just like they had the chance to make X-Men 1 to 3 fucking badass, and they kind of dropped the ball on some of the stuff. Like, it just got really corny towards the end, and I mean, it was kind of cool seeing, you know, Magneto lift the entire Golden Gate Bridge. It was pretty badass because of the amount of power that it would take. Like, I think they did I think the Film Theorist did a measurement, and it'd be like 1 million times stronger than like the world's like strongest magnets. So it'd be kind of cool. They also said that he could be taken out with a bullet too, but if you look at the first one, they kind of like slow the bullet down where the thing is there, and they try to say that it's like a different type of bullet or something, that copper apparently or lead would kill him anyways. But There's been plenty of times if you look in like the comic books too, where he stopped like regular bullets and everything like that too. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting to see how that would kind of play out. But to be honest with you, I don't know. I mean, Days of Future Past was kind of cool, and it seems that with like the kind of like the X-Men franchise with a film, it's like they come out with a few movies that are really kick-ass, but like there's only like a couple movies that really stand out alone on themselves. Like Origins, with the whole thing with like Sabretooth and Wolverine being brothers, was just, oh my fucking god. I think everybody just completely hated that movie. And when they have Ryan Reynolds and they sew his mouth shut, and I was just like, no, not Deadpool. Like, damn it. So that movie just sucked. First Class was okay, but I just wasn't really a big fan of it. And I mean, I still watched it. I still liked it as a movie. Like it was just kind of cool to see and be like, okay, so that's a thing. But as an actual fan to the original source material, I find that just completely erasing practically like a whole bunch of movies with Days of Future Past kind of really does just kind of do a disservice, if anything, because now like I found it really hard to believe that Storm would just kind of side with Apocalypse. Like, yeah, I understand that like he was really powerful and stuff, but like he pretty much just like starts killing people off in the beginning. You pretty much know right from seeing him for a couple of minutes that he's a fucking super villain. And Storm has always like had to like steal when she was younger and like was just pretty much like helping other orphans and stuff. But I just really couldn't see her making that transition towards a supervillain, even though she ends up going against him towards the end. But I just was like, I found that very hard to believe. I like the angel aspect of things. That was pretty much very true to the story. But then they had the whole Nightcrawler and Jean Grey and everything. When it was almost like they kind of just like totally screw over everything. I mean, so now they're meeting for like the first time in like the 80s, as opposed to like when they meet in like the first movie X1, and just found it really kind of annoying because they kind of just like they put. Like, yeah, it was cool that they had, like, some Easter eggs in there, and they had, like, Wolverine and stuff, as, like, the Weapon X, like, when you see him when I saw him, like, break out, I'm like, as soon as I saw the thing, like, the little door open, I'm like, I bet you that's Wolverine, because you see him, get flung, into, like, the water after, the whole thing with Magneto, and, I'm trying to remember here. Yeah, where they're trying to stop the assassination of the guy for the Sentinel program, Thrax, I believe. I'm not too sure, but anyway, so I pretty much knew that it was going to be Weapon X because they had him like all like messed up with like the metal and the concrete and stuff at the bottom of the thing, and they ended up taking him at the end of it. So that was kind of cool, seeing him just go all ape shit. Like that was cool, seeing him go like completely feral and stuff. But then the whole him bumping into Jean Grey, and then she like makes him all like like gives him a piece of his memory back or something. I was just kind of like, all right, because in the whole storyline of Wolverine, he kind of like leaves that whole place and goes completely like apeshit crazy. It's usually like I think he like meets kind of like a doctor, a Canadian woman who kind of like helps heal him back and stuff like that, and then he ends up joining Alpha Flight, the Canadian group of superheroes and stuff like that for a bit, and that's kind of like the comic lore and stuff. So it was kind of interesting having that in there, but it just kind of seemed like it was just kind of thrown in there, really. Also, the whole Quicksilver being Magneto's son, I thought he was like him and Scarlet Witch were both born from like gypsy parents, but I guess in this version, he's the son of Magneto, and it just kind of sucks that they have like different versions of like they kill off Quicksilver in the Marvel version of like the second, I think, Avengers, Age of Ultron, and that just kind of pissed me off. I didn't like the actor who played Quicksilver in that anyways, but I like the actor that played younger Quicksilver in the Days of Future Past, and also The Age of Apocalypse. Mostly because he like really kind of saves a lot of people, and that little scene was just hilarious. Like that scene pretty much made the movie for me. The scene where he's like running on all the pieces of material that are going towards Apocalypse's like crazy ass giant lair, and I don't know, it just kind of seemed that like. I mean, like, let's go back to where Storm in Egypt or like Cairo or whatnot. Originally the storyline of the Marvel universe, like the original comic lore, I believe, it's actually Charles Xavier that finds her when she's younger, and I think he ends up ultimately fighting this weird ass demon that is kind of like a multi-dimensional demon or whatnot. That fucking I think it's Lucifer. I'm not too sure. I think it's like. Something that's pretty much like the physical embodiment of like internet dimensional evil or some shit, and that kind of like leaves him like paralyzed from that fight. So I find that was just so much more of a better storyline, and just kind of seeing her go like, where they have it where they make it so that Magneto deflects a bullet and Charles Xavier becomes paralyzed, and then you see him in Days of Future Past completely like as an alcoholic and stuff, just like not giving a shit. So that was kind of interesting take on it, but it really kind of seems that they've just kind of like they've deliberately erased the previous storylines and stuff just so that they could do their own thing. And in a way, some of it has worked, but in a way, a lot of it hasn't worked. I mean, it was pretty cool seeing the Wolverine movie where it was in like Japan and shit, where there was like whole. That was a pretty cool movie. I didn't mind that, but. As a whole, just as a fan, it seems that like, I mean, you can't really take it personally, but you kind of do from somebody that's seen like the 90s cartoons and have like read the comics and stuff as much as I could when I was younger, and just kind of seeing everything go away from it, especially with the way that Fox has been kind of been, they totally screwed up the Fantastic Four. And they tried to make like a newer, younger version of the Fantastic Four, which just I didn't like. It was really stupid. But yeah, it's just really sad to see how some stuff is hit or miss, and it really is kind of just like it really does seem that there's a lot of laziness on the side of the like the developers and the movie production companies that are just really kind of going for selling tickets as opposed to really good story material. And hopefully that changes with because we're going kind of like in phase 3 now, going into phase 4 soon. So it'd be kind of cool to see the how they're going to play off the Black Panther things for Marvel, and see some of those movies. I wouldn't mind seeing Thor. I guess they're thinking about doing Ragnarok, so that'd be kind of interesting too. And because like the Thor was completely gone from Captain America's the Civil War movie, and Hulk, which I can understand because he got betrayed by Black Widow and stuff. So yeah, so I mean, really comes down to how they're going to change things up in the next little bit. I mean, DC is having a lot of problems right now, and hopefully they can get that stuff worked out, because I love seeing DC movies, and hopefully there's going to be more of the superhero movie. But I can also understand where people are coming from, people who aren't into the superhero storylines, who are just kind of like are just sick and tired of it, because it really does seem that they're kind of using just like basic stereotypical storylines and story arcs to just kind of do the same old really. It's really predictable, and it just seems that like the really great story ideas are just getting completely either stripped for their bare parts to appease like the bare minimum audience of people that have like grew up with it as a kid or read the comics, and also to appease people that have never read the comics that just want to see some ass kicking action, right? So it really kind of seems that they're just kind of trying to make everyone happy in that way, so they have a guaranteed box office sales. But that's just my opinion, and I like Deadpool, and Deadpool did really great at the box office. In fact, like it's right up there with freaking like Passion of the Christ and stuff. Like it was pretty funny when Yeah, they were talking about that too, and I mean, like Deadpool was awesome because it poked fun at a lot of inconsistencies, and like it said what a lot of the comic book fans have felt like their frustrations, and Ryan Reynolds is just a hilarious actor. He's great for the comedic roles and stuff, and I mean, just having like Colossus in there too was pretty cool, and I guess the Negasonic or whatever the hell the chick's name was. So it's kind of interesting. It was a great movie. I loved it, but I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that it made a lot of money because of the anti-hero aspect of it. Like, so many people are just sick and tired of the whole moralistic good guys versus the bad guys kind of thing. And it was definitely a good a good movie, because you look at Deadpool and just his like the way he breaks the fourth wall, the way he isn't afraid to make fun at stuff is just kind of it was perfect, really. I loved it. So I think I give definitely the thumbs up to the Deadpool. If they ever make it into a franchise, I'd totally go to the movies and spend money for that, just because it was hilarious. And I mean, they don't have to make like superhero movies like completely lighthearted and goofy and stuff. I mean, like they did with a lot of the DC stuff. They learned that the hard way when they're like the comics and like the TV shows were a lot more darker than what they were actually coming out with the 90s with the Batman and stuff, with like George Clooney and that whole horrible debacle. But there's also been like so many different interpretations of like Batman and different stuff like that too. So it's kind of cool to see the evolution over time. But yeah, I guess when it comes down to it, I mean, you don't have to agree with me or not. It just really does seem that like a lot of the movies now are just kind of being mass produced out there to a point where it's just kind of like a formula that they're using that they're not really like getting in. And there's so many different like it's really hard to go for one generic general vision when you're incorporating other storylines, and to do it in a way where it does make everyone happy, but it also does it in the best way possible. And I just don't really think that we're seeing that, and I understand where people are just getting pissed off and just kind of want superhero movies to kind of like take a bit of a back seat to like newer content and like movies with original ideas and stuff. And I know that's really hard to that's almost impossible to ask out of Hollywood nowadays, no matter what the production company is. So I'll leave it there, and just kind of I guess that's pretty much it for now. Just thought I'd put a little advertisement in there for my grandparents. Buttons by Design, I'll leave a link in the description below. What it really is a company where you can pretty much just like order online different types of buttons. They have like a ridiculous amount of buttons on display that they already have out there, but you can also customize buttons to say whatever you want. You can put your whatever kind of message you want on there. They're like 3-inch diameter buttons, and they also do like fridge magnets and stuff like that too for people that want to either advertise their own business. So it's great that way. It's like cheap advertisement or stuff like that. So I'll just put that down there because that helps them out. And, I mean, I don't really want to do this for any kind of monetary stuff myself right now. But, if it helps them out and gives them, some business, at least that helps my grandparents out and makes them happy. So, all right then. Well, thank you very much for your time. And that's my review of just kind of like the new Marvel movies and that have came out in the new DC movies and stuff. So, just kind of wanted to say that, thank you very much. And hopefully the new Doctor Strange, that looks like a really good movie too. I saw the trailer, and hopefully that really kind of changes things around for the whole Marvel universe. So, and the new Thor movie. So, right on. Thank you very much for your time, and keep on rocking in the free world. Peace, everybody.